Alright guys, we're going to start on I'm going to do this other video. If you didn't catch the video before this, the update on Kyle Maynard and his mother, then I'll go ahead and fill you in. I've got a very severe sinus infection, and it's whipping me pretty good. But I'm here. If you hear walking in the background, I got RJ coming up to pay me a visit. I just don't want him to catch my microphone cord. But this encounter, the young man who sent it to me, I spoke to him after he had sent me the encounter, and I started working on it. There were a few parts I had to leave out. It was just some of the words that he used could have been taken offensive. The way this world is today, somebody probably would have took it and said it was racist. The young man who sent me this encounter, he's a black American fella, and so it would not have been racist for him to say the things that he did, and it was quite funny. But I spoke to him and I told him I think it's best that we just leave that part out, just so there's no conflict, because there are a few people that it's not none of our subscribers, but there are a few people that hop in and just look for something to hit me with, and I'm not going to deal with that. We ignore that type of stuff. But the guy's he's a bow hunter, and I want to explain to you what his property looks like, because it's not real detailed in this email. When you pull off the road, it's a really long drive to get back to where the house is, and it is over 100-year-old farmhouse. About 150 feet behind the farmhouse, they have a huge barn, a wooden barn, and it's just as old as the house is. It's still operational. There's a huge double door at the front and rear of this building. The front doors face the home, and directly above the front door is another door that's called hay doors. And from what he was explaining, that's where they would toss the hay out. They would offload it through the doors through a chute, and then when they needed to carry it out to pasture, they would toss it out of these double doors. And these double doors, when you open them, it's not a window. You don't have a ledge. It's the floor, and then it drops down, and they're pretty high. Sorry, my nose is running. But it's got the same doors, the front and rear. The rear doors, if you go out of the main, the double door, just 20 or 30 feet, and you're in the woods. It's wooded from that point back. And they've got over 100 acres there. Well, this particular day, he was going to go bow hunting, and it was raining. And so he went inside the barn several times. He hunted. He would get in the upper level where the hay door is, and he'd open up one of the doors, and he'd sit to the side to where the second door would block his view, and he'd just peeking around it. And when the deer would come in from the woods, they would come directly behind that barn, and then they'd go out into the pasture, and he would get shots on them, and that's where he'd harvest his animals. And this particular day that this happened, that's what he was doing. It was raining. He got inside the barn to hunt. It was right before first light, and it's really fascinating what happened. But I told him I was definitely going to share it, and I had to take a few parts out, just so there's no trouble. But I want to get on with this story. I want you guys to hear this. It's fascinating. It's very fascinating. These doggone earpieces are aggravating me. He says, "Hey, I had a Bigfoot story to tell you. I want you to put it in your YouTube channel so people will know that Bigfoot is a real thing. If you'll put my story in YouTube, then I'll be glad, and I'll be thankful to you." I didn't finish all the grades, and I quit school in 8th grade to help Mama pay for the bills. I don't have a lot of education, and I have problems spelling, so I hope that you can read my letter. His father, he's still alive, but he is in the penal system. He's been there since this young man was in the 8th grade, and that's the reason he had to drop out of school. And I talked to him about it, and he said it's okay to put it in the video. He says, I'm 27 years old now, and my problem with the Bigfoot was when I was 20 or 21. We live in an old farmhouse that is around 100 years old. The drive is probably half a mile from the hardtop road. Our house is on 110 acres, and it is closer to the front. The house is closer to the front of the property, toward the road. Behind the barn is thick woods, and it is 20 or 25 feet from the barn door to the woods, to the wood line. The barn is real old, but it is still standing and no rotten wood on it nowhere. It was raining and real cold outside that day, and I wanted to go hunting with my bow because the deer was moving everywhere because it was the time of the rut. My tree stand don't have a roof, so I made up my mind to go inside the barn, and I will hunt from the upstairs hay door that is straight above the back doors. And one hay door is also above the front doors. I've killed a few deer from behind the barn before, so I know that I can probably kill one on this day. I went inside the barn about 5:30 in the morning, so I would be ready when the sun comes up. I keep my arrows in an arrow holder that goes over my shoulder. When I bent over to sit down on the floor in the upstairs of the barn, my arrows fell out of the arrow holder. One arrow was near my leg on the floor, and the other 8 arrows fell out of the hay door and landed on the ground. The sun was almost up, and it was too late to go get the arrows, so I will hunt with the one arrow that didn't fall outside. I was watching the woods to look for deer, but it was still nighttime under the trees. But I could hear a deer coming closer to the barn. And then I thought it was a person when I could hear the feet walking. One step, and then another step, and another step. Yep, that is a person, and I got mad. Our land is private property, and I am the only person that goes hunting in my family. I started to yell at him and say, "You are trespassing, and you are going to jail if you don't leave," but a rock hit on the floorboards behind me, and I didn't finish saying that. He threw a rock at me. What's up with this person? I thought that he might have a gun, so I moved over behind the hay door a little further so he couldn't see me. And I got really scared when I heard something was growling from the ground below me inside of the barn. I looked through the cracks in the floorboards, but it was too dark to see. I tried to move over to the big crack in the floor so I could see what was growling at me. And man, this was my nightmare. A huge finger with orange hair and a black fingernail pointed up between the floorboards at me. It was like a gorilla or a monkey finger, but it was too big for that. He was pointing his finger at me, and I was about to run straight to the front hay door and jump out because I was so scared. The floor for the upstairs is 15 feet above the ground. And whatever this was, it was able to touch the floor and put his finger between the boards and point at me. I'll tell you one thing. This black boy turned straight white, and when that finger poked up from the floorboards, in probably 1 hour, he was gone somewhere. And that's when I took some time and eased down the ladder to the ground. Ain't nobody was there, but something that was real strange to me. All my arrows that fell on the ground was all standing in the dirt. They was in one straight line and was probably 1 inch between each arrow. And they were all pushed 6 inches inside the ground. If you don't think that's some power to push an arrow inside the dirt ground 6 inches, then how about this? I can shoot my arrows all the way through a 2x4 board, and when I shoot it into the ground, it only goes about 2 or 3 inches. I know that was a Bigfoot, even if I only saw his big finger, because no human can push an arrow inside the ground 6 inches in clay. He raised his arm and put his finger through the floorboards that were 15 feet high. Shaquille O'Neal can't even reach 10 feet, and that brother is tall. I don't care if nobody believes me, because this is what happened to me. And I think that everybody that sees a Bigfoot needs to tell somebody to put it on YouTube so every person will know they are real. That is my story, Mr. Donnie. I would like to know if you might want to share it on your YouTube, like the other people's stories that you do in a video. Thank you, Mr. Donnie. Best hunting. And he signs off, Jared. Jared, I'm not laughing at you, buddy, but I just haven't heard a description like that before, and I apologize for not getting the name Shaquille. I know who he is, but I've always heard it as Shaq, and it took me a minute. But man, can you imagine that? From the ground to the floor for the upper level was 15 feet. Jared was on that upper floor, and this thing reached up and put its finger between the cracks in the floorboards and pointed up at him. How tall would you have to be able to reach 15.5 feet? 15 feet, he would have just touched the board, but he put his finger up past the boards. That'd have to be 12 foot, 11 to 12 foot tall. That's scary. That's frightening. One of the emails when we were corresponding, I asked him if they've ever had any other problems on the property, and he said sometimes at night, it's only in wintertime, but sometimes they'll hear the crazy howling. And he said it's not coyotes. He said this is something completely different. It's not owls and it's not coyotes. But the howls will start and they'll last about 30 seconds. And he said they're so loud, but they're off at a distance. But they've never seen anything. They've never had any problems. Around his house, there's been no peeking into windows or hitting the sides of the home. They've had no problems whatsoever. That was the only incident. And he's grown up in that house. That house was passed down to his mother from her parents, and it's been in the family for a long time. And he still lives there. But it's amazing that thing knew that he was up there and came into the barn. And he said that the arrows, we know it was a Bigfoot. I do. I got the feeling it was from what he explained. He didn't see it. He only seen the finger. But he said the arrows were pointing up like this and pushed into the ground 6 inches. And he's either in Georgia close to the Alabama line, or he's in Alabama close to the Georgia line. I don't remember exactly where he was at, but he's about midway up the state. And he said the ground, majority of it's clay, hard red clay. And this thing pushed the arrows in, but they were about an inch apart, and he said they were in a perfect line. And there's no way they would have fell from 15 feet and buried that far into red clay. And to land in a perfect line, 8 arrows, that's crazy. But it goes in line with all of the craziness that we hear so often about what these things do. And that's the first I've heard of something like that. But it's bizarre. We live in a crazy world, and it's only getting crazier. Well, guys, I'm going to cut this short. I've got to blow my nose before I make a mess of my mic. And I just figured I'd go ahead and share that with you, give you something else to listen to, and maybe give you a little better view of the lake back there. But I may be doing a live show, an interview with a lady here soon. She's a friend of the channel, part of our YouTube family, and she's had a lifelong, just a life encounter. She's dealt with these things her entire life. Hold on, buddy. Oh, hold on just a minute. Come here. Hey. Sorry, guys. RJ walked by and he got my mic cord stuck on his horn. He just kept on walking and pulled it out. But anyhow, if all goes well, sometime within the next week, we may have a live show. I'm going to try to get this lady to come on. She sent me her encounters, just a little bit from each one. But it's a life. There were so many. She's had so much happen. And I asked her if she would like to come on and explain to you guys firsthand. Let her tell the story. Because I would wreck it. She's had just so many experiences on the farm and at their home, and they're up on the East Coast in the mountains, and they still have encounters, still have experiences. Nothing bad has happened to them, but it's just it's mesmerizing to hear people that have had that many encounters and to hear the things that these giants are doing, and I'm fascinated with all of them. And you can hear the same story over and over, and you'll pick up little details that you missed the first time, and it's always fascinating. Well, I'm going to end this. Thank you guys for being a part of the channel. Thank you for being here this long with me. Please forgive me for my messed up sinuses and not talking so good. I don't talk good anyway, but I didn't need sinus infection to mess that up. It's already messed up. But y'all have a good day. God bless each and every one of you. And until next time, be safe.